You're listening to From the Chair, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Join us each episode as we talk to athletic directors from across America. We're going to talk about topics like leadership, career development, issues of the day, and I can promise you we're going to have some fun along the way too. So sit back, listen in, and let's dive in. Let's go. All right, welcome into the episode. Today's episode is with Hunter Yurachek, the athletic director at Arkansas. And Hunter and I have known each other for a long time, consider him a good friend. And I was just joking with him off the air that I usually try to kind of give an AD some heads up 24 hours in advance what we're going to talk about, and didn't get that done last night for being out at a concert here in Nashville. But here we are, and I know we'll have a good conversation. Hunter, thanks for joining me.
Mike, it's great to see you. Great to be on today with you on From the Chair. And we both look as young as we used to when we first became friends, for sure.
You've got more hair than I do, brother.
Not much, buddy. Not much. I'm catching you in that regard as well.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, you guys have really gotten off to a nice start here in football, and I was thinking about I read an article about a couple weeks ago. I think it was maybe in USA Today, where they were talking about Sam and Sam's success early at Arkansas. And one of the comments that was sort of highlighted in that article was Sam Pittman is a true Arkansas man. And certainly he had worked there before, and you hired him, and he had not had head coaching experience before, but obviously he had experience with Arkansas. Hey, let's talk a little bit about that. The hire, why he was the guy, and really just referencing why the public perception is that he is truly an Arkansas man.
Sure. I mean, we'll talk first about the hire. I mean, as I evaluated the football program back after the 2019 season when we had let Chad Morris go, we were really weak up front in the trenches on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Sam Pittman is a lifelong offensive line coach. He knows the offensive line. If you know the offensive line, you're always coaching against a defensive line, so you know that. He's as down-to-earth and genuine as they come, and that makes him have the ability to develop relationships with recruits and their parents, administrators, coaches, etc. And so he's a great recruiter. And then that final piece is he's a great fit for the state of Arkansas and the University of Arkansas. He grew up about 45 minutes from our campus just on the other side of the state line in Oklahoma. He grew up as a Razorback fan, and he was a coach that desperately wanted this job. He wanted to be the head coach at the University of Arkansas. I tell the story where I had offered him the job and he had said yes, and we'd never even talked about the terms, Mike. He never asked me what I was going to pay him, how long I was going to pay him that, and he called his agent and told him he got the job, and his agent at the time, Judy Henry, wanted to know, well, what's the terms? And but he just wanted the job, and that he is as genuine and as down-to-earth as they come. And if you remember the media and you ask him a question, well, he's going to answer it just as you asked it.
He's always had a great reputation for being like that. And look, the early returns are good, right? You guys came off a 9-4 season last year, and the Outback Bowl win, and certainly the future is really bright there. And I know your fans are excited about all that too. So, in fact, look, Hunter, the reality is you've got a great group of coaches across the board in a number of your sports, and I want to talk about a couple of those that maybe don't get as much attention on some of these conversations. If you think about football and basketball, women's basketball tends to get a lot of attention. Certainly baseball and the SEC is continuing to get a massive amount of attention. We're going to talk about that briefly in a minute. But if you pick out certain sports, there's certain schools that excel in those sports. I think about like golf. You used to work at two schools that have excelled historically in golf, at Houston and Wake Forest. There's women's basketball, UConn, Tennessee, Baylor, some others. But one thing that stands out, if you care to look at NCAA history of championships, is the long and storied and successful history of track and field at the University of Arkansas. And I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I think you've got somewhere 35 or more national championships in track and field, and obviously many, many more championships in that sport in the Southeastern Conference. What do you owe that long time success to in track and field at Arkansas?
Well, probably three people. First, John McDonald, who is the men's track and field coach that won 42 national championships in cross-country, indoor, and outdoor track. He was succeeded by Chris Bucknam, who's done an incredible job leading that program over the last decade. And then on the women's side, Lance Harder is in his 32nd year leading our women's program. This will actually be his final year. And they've won 5 national championships on that side. We have a huge flag that flies over our track and field complex with the big number 47 on it, because we're very proud of the 47 national championships that we have won in track and field. And so that's a tribute to Coach McDonald, first and foremost, for setting that standard back in the 80s and 90s, and then for Coach Bucknam and Coach Harder to kind of take that baton, so to speak, and continue this tradition of track and field. And, we're in the Southeastern Conference, Mike, in one of the most arguably competitive track and field conferences in the country. And we won 5 out of the 6 Southeastern Conference championships last year that are contested between men's and women's track and field and cross country. And I believe we're the only track and field program in the country that's still split, where we have a head coach for women's track and field and a head coach for men's track and field. We have yet to combine those programs. And it's one of the things I looked at when I first arrived here on campus almost 5 years ago. But it's my philosophy after I examined it: if it's not broke, why am I going to try to fix it?
Right. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, obviously I was at a school which had a lot of track and field history as well, at Tennessee. And so it was always competitive between the two programs and others in this league, as you've already alluded to. I mean, South Carolina and Florida, et cetera. So it's very, very interesting to watch. And Arkansas has really, to have stayed on top as long as you have stayed on top is a testament to not only the coaching, as you alluded to, but the support that you guys have given the program over the years. So another one of those programs is baseball. And Coach Van Horn, been there a long time, obviously. And I think for those who have never been to your area of the world, coming to a baseball game in Fayetteville is a pretty special occurrence. I mean, you've obviously got a winning tradition in baseball. You've been to the College World Series 11 times. But the facility itself is a phenomenal facility. I know you've got a new part of that facility we're going to talk about in just a second. But I think, okay, so the facility holds over 10,000 and number of suites. I mean, how many suites do you guys have now in baseball?
We have 32 suites and 15 4-person loge boxes out in that new facility out in right field.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
And the suites are sold out for the season already. There's a waiting list for those suites, a waiting list for the loge boxes, and we're sold out on season tickets. I'm assuming it'll be the 3rd consecutive year. For 2 consecutive years, minus the COVID year, we've been sold out on season tickets. And so it is a special experience to come to Baum-Walker Stadium for a baseball game, for sure.
And so another part of the baseball success is now this new $27 million Hunt Baseball Development Center. You see that number, and you're not talking about a $27 million baseball stadium. You're talking about a $27 million baseball development center. It's a staggering number in some ways. Of course, we've got inflationary costs in facilities, construction, and that kind of thing. But what is the focus of that particular facility?
Yeah, it's 80% dedicated to the development of our student athletes, just like the name it carries. There is a new clubhouse, a new training room, a new weight room. It's got an incredible bullpen and hitting area with all the technology that you can imagine, especially as a pitching coach, with the force plate and the spin rate analysis machine and things of that nature that just for our player development. I mean, we recruit players that aspire to be major league players, and that for the 3 years or 4 years that we have them here, we want to give them the best opportunity to develop as young men. And then also we've got some coaches' office, some meeting space. And then one of the things that was very important is to incorporate a revenue stream in that. And so we put 15 4-person loge boxes in there. They sold out in less than 24 hours. And then we have a rooftop bar where we sell 150 tickets per game the week of the game. And so if we have a weekend series, let's say against Tennessee, we put those on sale on Monday. That was sold out. Every time we put those on sale for this past season. It's just kind of an open air bar that's up there on top of that facility. So it's just a special place. You put that with right across the street as part of our track and field facility. We have an indoor full practice infield for baseball, and then Baum-Walker Stadium itself. I think we have one of the nicest baseball complexes in the country. In fact, many of our minor league and major league baseball players will come back during the off season. We have a major league baseball player locker room, and they say it's one of the nicest places they get to work out in.
So, look, you've got a population base to some extent in Fayetteville and Bentonville. And I don't know, does your baseball season ticket base expand beyond that all the way down to Little Rock, or is it mainly focused within that hour, let's say, or 30 minutes of the baseball stadium itself?
I would say when we have a SEC weekend baseball series, most of the hotels in this area are full, so we're getting a good base of population from outside of Northwest Arkansas. Obviously, there's a significant amount of our fans that come from Northwest Arkansas, but I think we do have people that travel from the central part of the state as well.
Yeah. Okay, so you signed a new contract extension this past spring, and now you've been an athletic director at 3 different places, 3 successful places. First one, opportunity, obviously, Coastal Carolina. Back in the day, where you actually won a national award for your work there as FCS Athletic Director of the Year, and then at Houston. And then now you're completing, I guess it's your 5th year at Arkansas. And so once you're now in the game, man. You can't pull the rookie card anymore. You can't pull the honeymoon card anymore. You're 4 or 5 years into it, and you signed a longer extension. What's next? What are the big things on your horizon for you, Hunter, as you think about your second 5-year segment of your tenure at Arkansas?
Sure. We're continuing to chip away at our facilities master plan. The Board of Trustees recently approved 2 new projects. One would be a major renovation to our soccer complex. We have a women's soccer program that's been to 6 consecutive SEC tournament championship games and won 3 regular season championships. We probably have a very subpar soccer facility for being a member of the Southeastern Conference. So we're going to do a $20 million renovation to that facility. And then you mentioned the baseball development center. We're going to also build a softball development center for our softball program that just has won the last 2 SEC regular season championships and won the 2022 tournament championship, so that our softball student athletes have a similar facility to develop in as our baseball players. And then it's hard to believe, but Bud Walton Arena is now 31 years old and in need of some renovation. Our suites need to be renovated. We don't have any other premium amenities like a club seating area, a loge box area, and it just needs some deferred maintenance, such as a new roof, a new floor. Some of the pull-out bleachers need to be replaced. And so as we look at that facility over the next 3 to 5 years, we're talking about anywhere in the neighborhood of $100 to $150 million renovation to bring that to where it needs to be, to continue that run we have in men's basketball over the next 10 to 15 years.
It's interesting to think back about facilities that were built, significant basketball facilities built during that time, within that 10-year time, let's call it, with the Smith Center at Carolina and Thompson Bowling in Knoxville and your place there in Fayetteville. And it's kind of wild to think about the lack of premium spaces that were in those facilities, premium seat spaces, and then also just club spaces, right? And so the retrofit, it's interesting to think about, like, I'll just give you an example. The Pyramid in Memphis and the Charlotte Coliseum and Thompson Bowling Arena were all built in the exact same year, I think, right? 85, 86, 87, somewhere in that time frame. And while I was at Tennessee, obviously, Memphis moved from the Pyramid to the new FedEx Forum, and a facility that was at the time was I think $250 million, and obviously they share that with the Grizzlies. And then in Charlotte, that's a parking lot now, and the new building was built downtown again for about $250 million. And in Knoxville, we built a basketball practice facility, and we retrofitted the building, reduced capacity, added suites, added club seats, did all the things you're talking about in terms of new terrazzo flooring and graphics and all that, replaced all the seats in the building. And we did that between the basketball practice facility and the arena renovation. We did that for about $35 million. And so, the notion of how important basketball is at Arkansas and looking to do what you're talking about doing, taking a facility that has great bones, right, and updating it, I think is an interesting proposition, and the decision to stay there as your home, right?
Absolutely. So the price tag for Bud Walton Arena when it was built in the early 90s to seat 20,000 people approximately was $25 million. And as we've done a feasibility study for what I would call a modest renovation to that facility, to be in the neighborhood of $100 to $150 million is just mind blowing, is it not, Mike?
The inflation costs on construction, part of that it was even happening pre-pandemic, right? But certainly in the last 3 years, I've got a brother-in-law that's in construction. You know him, and he was just telling me about pricing and how it's changed. It's changed how they go about their business. And so I know that when you start contemplating that and you talk about raising private funds for that and what you're going to have in terms of bonded indebtedness, the numbers are quite staggering. And candidly, if you built that facility from the ground up, you'd be talking about what, 3 times that amount of money?
Yeah, well, Texas just built an arena that seats approximately 15,000 for about $350 million.
Yeah, spot on. Hey, let's shift gears for just a second. Obviously, you are in the Southeastern Conference, as you alluded to, and I think NIL is a in my conversations with athletic directors, it's probably the number one thing that folks continue to realize that they've got to lean in and find solutions. There's genuine curiosity because everybody seems to be doing it differently. Collectives are, some schools have a collective, some schools have multiple collectives, some collectives are 501c3s, some are for profit, all those kinds of things. And I think that over the last 15 months or so, from when this all sort of became a part of our universe, there's been incredible evolution, and I think there's much more yet to go. I mean, I think at some point multimedia rights holders will have to be more engaged in this, even though we were not at the beginning of this conversation. Certainly, there's the perceived pay for play element. So obviously there are significant dollars going into the enterprise here, and how do you allocate that in the right way? Will donors and supporters of your program support collectives in year 2, year 3, year 4 in the way they've supported in year 1? So as you look at the landscape of NIL, and let's talk specifically to Arkansas for just a moment, how are you guys approaching that particular thing that has become very important in college athletics now?
Sure, Mike. I thought we really got ahead of the game back in March of 2021. We hired Terry Prentice, who's a former student athlete here that was in our foundation staff, but had gone to Kansas with Jeff Long, and we were able to lure him back as our senior associate AD for athlete brand development. Terry had about 4 months before July 1st of that year hit to work with our Walton College of Business and our entrepreneurship hub to develop a plan for our student athletes as the NIL space came into play in college athletics. And we have a 1-hour educational program that all of our athletes go through. They have course credit. It teaches them about how to review contracts, hire agents, negotiate their own deals, pay their taxes, what's a 1099, what's a 1040, things of that nature, just some basic things really to teach them how to start a business, because that's really what NIL is. And I will tell you that our student athletes during the course of the 12 months from July 1 through June 30th, 225 student athletes participated. That was 135 male, 90 female, over 650 what I will call legitimate name, image, and likeness agreements were reported by our student athletes to earnings of about $2.1 million. I think that was NIL as it was intended, to let these young men and women have the rights to monetize their name, image, and likeness in that space and create their own businesses. But from that has evolved collectives and other third-party organizations that say they have these student athlete interests in mind. And but obviously, if you're a third-party company, you've jumped into the space because there's an avenue by which you can make money on the backs of student athletes in their name, image, and likeness. And then the collectives and what they've done in the recruiting process and the transfer process, those things, in my opinion, are bad for college athletics. And that's where we need some legislation. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be congressional legislation that helps us get the arms around it as an industry. But name, image, and likeness, as it was intended to give student athletes, just like the general student population, an opportunity to monetize their name, image, and likeness, is a very good thing. It's what everyone else has tried to make name, image, and likeness. In my opinion, it's become a bad thing.
Yeah. It's interesting. We talk about how these deals are coming about, and if you were to even 3 years ago talk about a representative helping a student athlete, you would shudder at that, right? Or a student athlete get paid for this or that, and how. So you mentioned the government getting involved in this, right? Do you see, at the end of the day, is it stratified at all? I mean, do you think you'll see, certain conferences handle it certain ways, obviously different divisions handle it different ways, or do you think the government can exercise granularity to it in such a way that it's all encompassing?
I think that's still yet to be determined, Mike. I think there's different ways. I mean, it's hard for your conference to get involved. I mean, we have 11 states represented within the Southeastern Conference. All 11 states now have name, image, and likeness legislation, and all of that legislation is a little bit different. So how is the Southeastern Conference going to intervene in 11 different states to kind of monitor name, image, likeness, or legislate name, image, and likeness activities? I think that's going to have to come at the congressional level, or it's going to be a very heavy lift where states start to come together in a collaborative effort and make their name, image, and likeness laws more similar so that we can all operate in the same way in this space. But right now, I think, the path of least resistance may be the congressional intervention, but obviously our federal government has a lot other issues on their plate than trying to manage college athletics.
Yeah. All right. So coming down the backstretch, really one more question, because I know you've got we're recording on the Friday before the A&M game for those who are watching. And so reflect back on this time. You've got a lot to do and preparation for getting out of town over the next 24 hours and getting there. You have been on record in the last the day or so that you think that eventually this is a game that comes back to campus at some point. And then you think about the addition of Texas and Oklahoma and how that affects football scheduling across all sports, right? And I know the SEC is talking about 8-game, 9-game, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on that specifically. But, as it looks, you have a brilliantly constructed, Coach Broyle started stadium that generates a lot of revenue. So, and you're in one of the premier conferences in the country, clearly. How do you contemplate, knowing that Texas and Oklahoma are coming into the league is looking at different, structures for, what the conference season looks like. How do you contemplate your future football scheduling in this light? As you know, historically speaking, everybody was scheduling 10 years out, right? And I know that's probably already been modified at some level, but you also want to have as many games as you can in Fayetteville. Give me a little bit of glimpse of what you're thinking there in the years ahead here.
Sure. The contract for the A&M game in Dallas ends after the 2024 season. We have 3 more games scheduled, 23, 24, 25 over in Little Rock. But we'd like to bring all of those games back on campus because we've just done a $160 million renovation to our stadium here in Fayetteville. It's our home field. It's where our student athletes are comfortable. They sleep in the same hotel when we have home games. They have the same kind of routine when we have home games. They play on the same grass field when we have home games. When you go to Dallas or you go to Little Rock, it's a little bit different experience for your student athletes. And then you start talking about the monetary piece, where our football program is responsible for anywhere from 70 to 75% of the revenue that we generate as a department. Many of that comes from ticket sales and donations tied to our home games here at Razorback Stadium. So it's very important that we can, whether that's a model that has 6 or 7 home games, that's very important for us. Right now, this is the first time in the history of our stadium in Fayetteville, this 2022 season, that we have 7 home games in Fayetteville. That's a significant number for us from a revenue standpoint. Not only the ticket sales and the donations, when you talk about concessions, when you talk about merchandise, when you talk about what happens in our community with hotels and restaurants in a small college town, very important to our community as well. And so there's a lot that goes into the football scheduling, and to give our student athletes and our coaches the best opportunity for success, but also that we can monetize where we need to monetize so that our other programs can be successful by what we invest back into our athletic department.
Awesome. All right. 2 quick things and we're out. First is Eric Musselman. Eric Musselman is a very, I haven't mentioned him yet. And so kudos for that hire as well. And you guys, obviously your basketball success has been fun to watch. And Eric has a really entertaining way about himself, obviously, and is very engaging. And I was just wondering, who does a better job engaging fans on Twitter? Is it you or him?
Oh, it's no doubt it's Coach Musselman. I mean, he is a social media guru. I mean, he goes to, if he's on a recruiting trip in Dallas or Kansas City or Atlanta, wherever it is, he's going to go see the recruits, but then he's going to go find someone famous that he can put on a T-shirt that represents that person and spend some time getting to know them and take a picture and put that on social media. I mean, he sees social media as a platform by which he can recruit. He's trying to show that he's a hip, in tune men's basketball coach, and because he believes there's young eyes that are on those social media platforms watching what he does, and he takes it very personally. There's something on that represents your social media action for all the college basketball coaches, and I think he's won that or been ahead every month so far this year. He doesn't want to lose a month to anyone. I think John Calipari may have beaten him out one month in 2021. He was not very happy about that, but there's a method to his madness, Mike. He doesn't just do it to do it. I think he enjoys the social media, but he also sees it as a key piece of his recruiting inventory.
Yeah, and I'll call out something else too that I've heard him say, and this is a credit to you, and I think it's an important statement relative to other ads or rising ads that might be listening to this. He made a comment about looking around the room in your coaching meetings and seeing success sitting in every chair, and the way that challenges him personally. And so, success breeds success, right? And the fact that he's already had the success that he has had, but yet he's looking around the room and seeing that there's yet more opportunity to come, speaks a lot to how he's built as a coach. And those are the kind of coaches you want around you, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the success we're having as a department is because of our head coaches support each other, and they really feed and they're energized by each other's success. And they see, hey, if this program can have success here at the University of Arkansas, we can have success as well in the SEC. And when our coaches see that, their assistants see that, our student athletes see that, and it has a cascading effect throughout our department, throughout our community, and throughout our state, which is really awesome. And it's kind of what we're experiencing right now. I mean, we're in the middle of the fall season, and we have 7 sports competing, and all 7 are ranked in the top 25 right now for the first time in the history of our program. And our volleyball program hasn't been ranked in 2 decades, and now they're in the top 20 following 2 top 10 wins because Coach Watson's seen the success other sports are having, and it's helped kind of push him to want to have that same success and realize that's possible here at the University of Arkansas.
Yeah. And I'm not going to ask you to do it today, but what's the over-under on the number of times that Hunter Yurachek has called the Hogs since you've been athletic director?
Oh, let's see. I've been here for 5 years. Yeah, I mean, I would say we're getting close to 1,000 now.
That's right, man. Well, that's one of the great things about college athletics that makes college athletics so unique, man. So, hey, man, I appreciate you joining me today. It's been good conversation.
Mike, thank you very much for having me. Thanks for doing this for college athletics. This is an awesome tool. I listen many times when I have a chance when this gets released, and you do a great job. And this is what a service to young administrators, especially.
It's been my pleasure, and thank you for your continued friendship, man. All right, so this is From the Chair with Mike Hamilton. I'm your host, and today's guest has been Hunter Yurachek. By the way, if you're interested, archived in From the Chair from about 4 or 5 years ago, there is another interview that I did with Hunter that speaks more specifically to his career track. If you want to go back and listen to that as well, additional to what we discussed today. We hope you'll listen each and every Wednesday or any other day for that matter on all the audio podcast platforms that are available to you, and right here visually, if you're interested in the video format, on YouTube. We'll see you next time. Have a great weekend.